Hello and welcome to Cocktails with a Twist of History, your digital destination for all things cocktails. An espresso martini is not something that Jerry Thomas would have thought of, I think, but he never met a supermodel like the bartender that we're going to talk about. Usually we've been talking about cocktails from the 1800s or even the 1900s, but the espresso martini is a fascinating modern cocktail, but the principles are still tied to the originals. First, I want to ask everyone to make sure that you subscribe or follow because it really makes a big difference to us. Thank you. The story goes that the supermodel Kate Moss was in a bar in London in 1983 and asked the bartender to make her something that, quote, will wake me up and F me up. Okay, end quote. Frank Sinatra once said that alcohol may be man's worst enemy, but the Bible says to love your enemy. Okay. So the bartender made a combination of vodka, fresh espresso, coffee liqueur, and sugar, and shook it up into a frothy mix. The bartender's name was Dick Bradsell, and the club was called Fred's Club. Not what I would have called a club, but okay. Remember that the famous story about the zombie with Don the Beachcomber, a customer with a hangover asked for a cocktail to, quote, help him get through an important business meeting. Beach concocted a powerful mixture of rums, juices, and spices. The customer later returned and told Beach that drink made him feel like, quote, the living dead, and that's how that cocktail got its name. But ours is the espresso martini, and basically it had espresso in it, and that's why he called it that. Okay, I have been talking way too long without a drink in my hand. Let's make an espresso martini. It is a shaking cocktail, so we are going to need our shaker. It has vodka and a full 2 ounces of vodka. Those of you that follow the show know that I like the cocktails that have a little high on alcohol content. There we go. That's our 2 ounces of vodka. It needs coffee liqueur. So we are going to use a coffee liqueur. The original one was probably Kahlua. Kahlua has a lot of sugar in it and corn syrup. So some people say you should use one with less. I don't know. I like mine with a little bit more sugar, so I'm not using Kahlua. But anyway, this one does have sugar, and you need a half ounce of a coffee liqueur. Here we go. Now it also calls for a full ounce of espresso. It says freshly brewed or cold brewed. I've already mixed mine with the sugar because it's going to need a 1/4 ounce of simple syrup. So here we go. We are going to pour in our espresso and our sugar, and we are going to put in our ice. And like I always say, make sure that you're going to need a lot of ice for this one in particular, because the ice is what's going to make it have that froth, and it needs to have a lot of froth. That is part of the actual drink. We want it to be frothy on the top. Here we go. There is no milk in this one. When I drink coffee, I always have milk in it, but we're going to see this one. And we're going to shake. Now this one probably needs a little bit more shaking because, like I said, you want it to have that frothiness on the top. We are going to have a martini glass because it is called a martini. If you look back at the martini episode, we'll talk about what defines a martini, if this is really a martini or not. But for our purposes, we're going to say that it's a martini. And oh wow, interesting. It has no milk in it, and yet somehow it does look very creamy. And you can see that it does have that froth on the top. Now, I will tell you, very interesting. The people disagree about the different kinds of the ingredients that go in. The one thing that everyone seems to agree on is the garnish. It needs 3 coffee beans. Not 4, not 2, 3 coffee beans placed in the middle. And we are going to put it in the middle. And if you see, those coffee beans float on the top because of the frothiness. And this is our espresso martini. Cheers. Ooh, that is really nice. The coffee really comes out on top because there is a lot of coffee in it. It definitely needs the sugar in my opinion, but I like sweeter drinks. If you don't, try some of the coffee liqueurs that are less sweet. They do have them. This is delicious. Yeah, that is good. Well, some people say that it's really better without the sugar. Like I said, if you like the sugary drinks, or at least the sweeter cocktails, then leave it in. This idea about the 3 coffee beans, and it has to be 3. So some people say that it represents health, wealth, and happiness. And this comes from the traditional serving of sambuca in Italy, where the beans are called con la mosca. Again, I don't speak Spanish well, so my pronunciation is terrible. And that apparently means with the fly. So I think that the connection of the odd number has to do with the odd number of olives that were in the martini. If you remember from the episode about the martini, you need an odd number of olives in your martini. An even number is bad luck. I also think that the cocktail has other basics of the original cocktails, like the old-fashioned, in that it has a base spirit, in this case the vodka, and it has bitter and sweet elements, which balance it out. Instead of bitters, this uses coffee. Well, as always, if you know more information or other pieces of the history, please send it to us. You can email it to us, you can put it in the comments, or you can tell it to the bottle. We want to know. Also, if you haven't already, please, we want you to like, we want you to subscribe, we want you to follow so that more people can watch Cocktails with a Twist of History. Thank you.